On today's episode, we have guest Lacey, who is a podcaster, a writer, and who is learning to embrace life in the middle. So let's go. Welcome to Living My Restless Life podcast. I'm your host, HPG. In season 2, you'll continue to hear about how we can heal no matter what we go through, some tips and truths for self-improvement, and some little nuggets of wisdom for finding yourself on your path. I'll be hosting some mini-sodes, interviewing some awesome guests, and of course, some episodes with my occasional co-host, Martha. So let's go. All right, so today we have Lacey with us on the show. Welcome, Lacey.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, we talk about all things real life on the show, and you have a particular topic of interest regarding embracing life in the middle.
I started writing about, it's almost 8 months now, I think. It keeps getting longer and it surprises me. It shouldn't. And I started just to write for me. And I started to realize this concept of feeling like I'm in the middle and having discontent with it was everywhere. So I'm in the middle of the country. I live in the Midwest. I am in the middle of my career, the middle of my marriage. I'm in the middle of all kinds of toddler stages, kids stages. And I really struggle with the idea of not necessarily being the best, but not the worst, always feeling like I should be the best, that kind of thing. And so I really started to realize I had this discontent with the middle, but I loved the middle of food. So if you give me the center of an Oreo, I'm a middle brownie gal. It tends to be very controversial, but that's my favorite part of a brownie. And the middle of a really good piece of bread that's got a crusty outside and then that really good bite that's soft in the middle. I love that piece. And so I started to realize, what if I could embrace life of all those middles I don't like I like the middles of my food. And I'm not good at it. It's something I am genuinely trying to figure out. And what I am starting to realize, the more and more I talk about it and the more people hear about it, people tend to have this visceral of, oh, I know, and then have their own take and things that they're struggling with. And it kind of became more because of that. So I have a podcast and a blog that I write about these things, but I'm really I'm a process person too. I love to watch how things are made and that kind of thing. And that's kind of where I am, right? I'm in the middle of figuring this out and I like to hear other people's processes. So that is the middle in a nutshell.
I am an edge of the pan brownie person.
And that's great. Good for you. Just don't force those on the rest of us.
Gotcha. I like how you framed that you're in the middle of marriage, the middle of things with toddlers, the middle of things with your career. What would you say is one of your most defining middle moments?
I often think about pregnancy, actually. So that's actually pre-middle stuff. But I had very difficult pregnancies. I have 2 children. They're 2 and 4. And I got sick every single day. I had gestational diabetes. So I lost 30 pounds in pregnancy because I couldn't keep anything down. And then I couldn't eat anything that I wanted to eat. And so for me, when I think about really struggling with the middle, I think about that time when I was in pregnancy. I know there's an end, right? I'm going to have a baby. But there's literally nothing I can do about it right now. I am stuck here. And even though I know that there's an end, and even with my second kid, I went through the same thing. It was so frustrating. I just wanted the negative parts to be over. And literally, with my daughter, my son, I needed a C-section, but with my daughter, I was able to give birth vaginally. And the minute she was out, I felt different. Literally, they're like stitching me up. And my husband's like, how are you? I'm like, I'm great. Are you kidding me? This is wonderful. And so I think about that middle where I felt so powerless and there was nothing I could really do.
Tell me more about how we gain some power in the middle.
That's a great question that I'm still figuring out. There's a lot about mindset that I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the middle, like with pregnancy, I don't have a good answer there. I wish that I could. In my specific situation, I don't have a good answer there. Now, when I think about like where I am right now, I'm struggling with some pretty serious health issues. I still don't officially have a diagnosis, but I've not been able to work traditionally. My whole life has changed really in the past 6 months because of neurological and fatigue issues. And I think about where I am now and dealing with the middle, and my mindset has so much to do with embracing this middle so much more. So part of that is figuring out what is fake. I have a lot of fake rules that I've set up in my head of like, this is how things need to be done. And guess what? They don't need to be done. I just need the outcome. So I had like a small breakdown when I had to buy a shower chair because showering was standing for that long was too difficult for me. But now I love my shower chair and I think everybody should get a daggone shower chair. So it's that kind of mind shift. I like genuinely, I put one in an Amazon store. If someone needs to be the face of shower chairs, I'm happy to be that. But that was a big thing of like, yes, I am 34 years old and I have a shower chair. And guess what? Everything's fine. And I actually really like it. So that mind shift of what I think should be needs to go. And then the other part is just acceptance and not caring about the things that I don't need to care about, which I am a person who cares a lot. That is something I'm still figuring out how to do again, that I'm just learning. I'm like, you know what? That's just not something I can care about. If the front of my house looks like a hot mess, whatever, my kids are safe and we're fine. Okay. I don't need to care about that.
So it sounds like you've done some mindset work and you're working on some limiting beliefs about some things.
Absolutely.
I've found for me that just like anything is a practice and doing a lot of thought replacement. Has that been helpful? Like in the analogy you used about the front lawn or like what the front of your house looks like. Has that been helpful?
Absolutely. So I actually, before all of this, I've been in therapy for years and I highly recommend therapy to everyone. And I had this wonderful therapist who told me once, because I have really bad negative self-talk. I am the meanest person to myself. And I said one of those thoughts out loud to her and she stopped me and she asked me 3 questions in succession that I now use as a kind of like daily practice of like, is this true? Is this helpful? And would you say this to somebody else? And a lot of times a thought doesn't even get past 1 or 2 before I'm like, okay, I need to slow this down and stop that, and that has really been a big practice for me of slowing those thoughts down. I'll be honest, I haven't mastered the replacing them yet. Mm-hmm. I haven't quite gotten there. But that stopping them and not letting them stay has really been a big deal for me.
I like what your therapist suggests. Is this true? Because a lot of the things we tell ourselves it's just not true.
It's just not true.
Something that I try to think of when I'm being really hard on myself is what I tell this to my daughter, who is 2. She'll be 3 next week. Mm-hmm. Would I treat her this way? Would I talk to her this way? Would I expect these things of her? No. Would I want her to do that for herself? No. Mm-hmm. So with living with some in the middle with some health issues and you've not quite got a diagnosis, there's a lot of middle ground there, and you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. How have you found the balance or the middle with having some physical limitations, health issues, and being a toddler mom?
So I just want to preface this by saying I was never like a Pinterest perfect mom. I was always a sitting down mom, but I like to joke that I'm a laying down mom now.
Got it.
So like for really when I've gotten better as I've learned about pacing and that kind of stuff and really protecting my energy and so I have improved in some ways, but especially when I was really hit bad with my fatigue and neurological issues, I would be laying down just in the area that they were. My son is just the sweetest, and he's the 4-year-old. We started doing what we call cuddle chats, where he would come into bed with me and lay and just talk my ear off and tell me about his day and tell me stories. We started playing improv games because he was like, "Give me 3 words and we're gonna make a story." I'm like, "Okay, bud, sure." And we like sing a little like song. It's like cuddle chat. Like we, make it into a thing. So that was really my big win there. And did I like that that's what I had to do? No, but looking back, I have a very empathetic, thoughtful child because of what I'm going through. So one of the things that happens to me is I will often go through something that puts me, I either pass out or go through paralysis. We're still figuring out what happens. And I have to get to laying down quickly. And usually it's my husband who like helps me get to lay down. Well, my son has taken it on himself that he will help. And that's his first thing of, do you need to lay down? My husband dropped something on his toe the other day and really hurt himself. And my son's response was like, "Daddy, do I need to take you to the couch?" And I just have this moment where I'm like, oh, there are some good things coming out of this, that he is really learning how to be there and be supportive and empathetic. So I feel really good about what I've been able to do with him. With my 2-year-old daughter, I'll be honest, I'm still really struggling. She, for really a couple of months right after I got sick, I really just didn't seem interested in me because I couldn't give her physically as much, right? I really couldn't lift her and pick her up like I wanted to. Now I could get her to sit in my lap and then we would engage some singing songs. That's been my big thing of like, yeah, I can sing a song. We're not going to sing Baby Shark 30 times, but we can sing it twice and I'll do the hand gestures with you. But I will say she started to learn about the just kind of being with me too, where sometimes she just comes over and sits with me and does her own thing and plays with a toy or whatnot. So we've really, I would say in the past month, I feel like she and I have really started to have more of that connection back. It's been hard to feel it gone because like I carried her. I breastfed her. I was her person for the first 18 months of her life. And then I couldn't physically do as much. And so then my husband was. And it was a really hard thing for me. So we are getting back sort of to a place where I feel like I'm at least in her top 3 people. I did not feel like that.
Yes, I can relate to that feeling.
Yeah, her brother is pretty cool. And, I get that. It's hard. It's hard because motherhood is so full of these expectations of what a good mother looks like to you. I have a superstar of a mom who can do anything. Like she's a better Grammy, like physically than I am a mom right now, that kind of stuff. And so that's where a lot of that kind of acceptance and mindset work of I am still the best parent for my kids that I can be right now. And they are good, kind, smart, funny, interesting people because I am their mom. And so it's kind of reminding myself of that. And really, my zone of genius was never the physical stuff anyway. Like, I'm a chatting mom. One of my nieces told me when she was like 5, like, "Oh, we know that you don't come here to play. You're not good at imagining, but you come here and you talk to us." So
Yeah.
It's really nothing different.
Well, I think for me, like I struggle with mom guilt a
Mhm.
lot more than my spouse does. Um, and I don't really know why. I'm going to keep on exploring that with my therapist. But I think a lot of it has to do with when I was, post-op, after surgeries, during chemo, during radiation, I physically could not give her the care that I needed. And I
Mhm.
felt terrible. And like, as we're talking about improvising with your chats with your son and the songs with your daughter. The improvising is great, and we get really creative and resourceful on
Mhm.
our parenting, and especially when they can talk a little bit more to us.
I do think that's been a big deal for my daughter because as she's talking more, I feel like we are getting closer again. So I think that was a really big barrier for us.
So let's take a little break. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch by heading over to According to HPG on Instagram, and be sure to tell your friends about the show. There was a time when I thought I could record, edit, and publish everything myself. Seeing as this left me very little time for anything else, I started to lose the standard of quality I was used to. Then I found Jay. In less than a day, the show went from so-so to amazing. Don't sacrifice quality for mediocrity. Check out the Podcast Mechanic and take your sound to the next level. Connect with Jay today at the Podcast Mechanic on Instagram. Let him know HPG sent you. All right, let's get back to the show. In my thoughts, I think our daughter picks up on energies. Before she
Mhm.
could really put words to them, she could just feel the energy was off. And I think moms just across the board, not necessarily moms that are just moms that are experiencing health problems, have such like standards that society says that we have to do. And then we put them on ourselves, talking about like the mindset earlier. And
Yeah.
like, I know as a social worker for over 20 years, I know that like the hierarchy of needs that she needs. I
Mhm.
know from an attachment theory that everything is going to be okay. Now, if I could convince myself that, it sounds like I need to work on like mom affirmations. Maybe that'll be like one of my little mini-sodes that I put out in season 2. It's like affirmations for moms because we need them.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And I do think that that has been something that I have been able to internalize and do. Like, my kids are the most joyful children, and they bring joy literally everywhere they go. My son, when I don't smile at him right away, is like, "Mom, what's wrong?" So to me, that tells me that he is looking for my smiles. And he's started talking about the other people in his world that smile when they see him. And so I that's one of my biggest, like, if somebody asks me for parenting advice, from day one, smile at your kid as much as you can. I I don't know if that's why he is the way he is or my daughter's the way she is, but daggone it, I really like it, and that is something I've done right. They may not have the coolest toys or do all the activities and all those things, but they're real good smilers, and I like that.
Yeah, and that's connection, that's energetic, a share of energy, that's like something that they literally can mirror. Like he's sharing that with you and his friendships that he's making now. And I think it's just I personally overcomplicate things and maybe overthink things. And when it comes to being a parent, I'm like, truly, this is like what helped me when, like, I'm a very plan-oriented person. So how I approach motherhood is I have no plan at all. And that has been my top tip is I don't have a plan because I really don't know what I'm doing. You can read every book, you can comb the internet. I've tried. I just have no plan. I have no plan. So it's nice to chat with you about like mental, physical health issues and being a toddler mom because it's just we're in a unique category. We're in a club nobody wants to be in, but I'm glad
it really is.
that we're really able to give voice to it because I think other people that are listening might feel like, oh, I feel that way too. Like, I feel like I can't physically show up for my kid. Oh, but we can play this fun word game. And like, that's building core memories.
The more that I learn about being someone who would be considered disabled is that a lot of accessibility tools that we give to those who are disabled would benefit for everybody. The analogy that's always given when it comes to accessibility is sidewalks having the dip when it goes to go over curbs, how that was given for people with wheelchairs, but then benefited all kinds of people. And I just start to think about obviously we need to give those who need those accessibility things priority and because they need them and that kind of stuff. But I also don't think they should necessarily be gatekept to improve other lives, because a lot of what I've learned in this experience is lowering the bar of access makes life easier. And that if I can lower the bar of access for myself, if I can lower the bar of access for a lot of, of my children and my husband, that kind of stuff, and stop worrying about these fake rules of the bar has to be here versus here, the better we're all going to end up being.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I like the thought about mindset and the fake rules, because one of the things that I stopped doing when I started working on like shedding the weight of other people's opinions was trying to learn these false rules. They're not real. There's no truth to it. As we were talking about earlier, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? If not, or like, who would I be without this thought?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to give one more piece of advice to someone who is trying to embrace life in the middle, whatever their middle may be, what would it be?
You have more answers than you know. And that a lot of the work that you have to do is shedding outside voices. So it's very related to that fake rules type thing. But I have been realizing in a lot of ways, I have been pushing myself to be this way that I feel like I should. And I've started to really look within and start to think about, well, what do I think I should do? What feels right to me? And to stop making myself smaller when it comes to those things. And now that doesn't give you free rein to go be a big old jerk and just do what you want willy-nilly and that kind of thing. But I do think we often tune our own self out, and that is not in your best interest.
The movie that comes to mind is The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy has the power the whole time. So if people want to connect with you, learn more about life in the middle, and hear your podcast, tell us how we can find you.
Yeah, so the brand name is the THE and then MDDL, so middle with all the vowels removed, because I could get that website. And that's essentially how you find me on pretty much all platforms. I'm the middle at on Instagram, themiddle.com. And then my podcast is called Sharing the Middle, because I do a lot of interviews and talking with other people like yourself. So I'm a lot of different places. If you just search MDDL, though, it's some kind of marketing programming language. So it's the middle, the MDDL. I'll send it to you in an email. But it's just a little funny thing that I found of like, oh, okay.
I think it's really cool and indicative that the vowels were removed, because the name the traditional spelling of middle was taken. I think that just says a lot about the middle. I think that's like foreshadowing almost about what life in the middle could be like.
Well, and I also think it's interesting that because I asked people, right? I'm like, if I send you MDDL, what do you read? Universally, everybody was like, oh, it's middle. And I'm like, okay. So we know, we know it. And that kind of goes back to, and I just kind of made this connection, that idea of fake rules of we're still sharing meaning here. You still get what I'm saying, even though we did not have it be perfect.
Well, thank you for coming on today. And I'll make sure to link
having me.
all your information in the show notes. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Living My Breastless Life. Head over to Instagram and follow According to HPG to stay connected to the show. Go get your mammograms. Are you loving the podcast? Give us a rating and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps the show stay visible to reach more listeners and help others.